how would you start an agency right now, and how would you grow it from
Sure.
0 to a million, and then
Yeah.
from a
So,
million to 10, and from 10 million to 100 million with
wow. Okay.
eventually go high
All right.
level?
Let's do this. I do have a
Amazing.
lot of data. Yes. I will say I'm not a genius by any means, but I do actually have access to quite a bit of information that the average person does not. Yes. I just want one dude who does my marketing and he delivers the results. And that's actually what he sells me, thank goodness, because that's all I care about. I don't actually want a website. I don't care about websites, by the way. I don't care about SEO. I give a crap about that. Here's the reality. I want customers and I want money. So unless you develop, if you can't give me customers and money, not interested in your services, thanks.
Where is this going now? Like, I know there's a lot of talk about what are they called? AI agents and
agentic AI. Yep, AI agents. That's absolutely the futures. I'm trying to think about this. What came first? I think Babcock and Jenkins was, I was hired there in high school because they were building websites for, they actually came out of a mail house business. And, mail houses send out mailers to your post box to go buy stuff. And what they figured out, and this, of course, I know this sounds dumb now, but at the time they were a bunch of geniuses. They figured out that if they had a website so the root issue would be, you could send out a million postcards, but then invariably there's a sales team behind that, and then and the sales team's whatever, 5 people or something. Who in the world out of the a million people they just send the card to, who do the salespeople call, right? And so what they figured out is if they put a contest on the card, and this back then this would be like, come here, like go to this website. And then they would put a 5-digit code on there, alphanumeric, and they would say, enter this 5-numeric alphanumeric code and enter to win an iPod, which of course back then was the big deal. And so, so what you instantly knew, right, is out of the million cards, who got it, who read it, and who took the time to go to a website and enter in the code. And so, that's who your sales team is going to call, right? And so, sure enough, that had actually a big impact on the return on investment of those campaigns. And so that company sort of became for a minute in time became incredibly popular with the largest tech companies on planet Earth, because their whole thing was they could show ROI from the marketing campaign, right? And so I got hired because at that time in history, making websites was kind of a new deal, and I was very much on the coding side. I loved coding, and so I did that all the way through high school, and then into the first year at university for me, which at the time was unheard of. I was working out of my dorm remotely for a software company. That was not even, like, no one even heard of that, let alone knew somebody who did it. So that was kind of cool. Then the dot-com crash happened, which was kind of a bummer. So they laid off half their staff, including the college kid, overnight. And it was funny because I was right at the end. It was like the last week of school when all the exams were happening. And I remember trying to go and log into my email, and I thought, and I couldn't log in. And I thought, gosh, I'm terrible at passwords, but I'm not this bad. And I called an IT guy. I was like, you're going to need to talk to HR. And I was like, something bad's going down. So I learned what a layoff is. I'd seen it before, but I got to personally experience it. So then I ended up doing most kids do, going back to their home, and I was without a summer internship. So then it was, all right, now what? So I literally walked out my front door with a stack of resumes, which back then, of course, you print out your resume, and I went door to door to door to door. And I figured, well, worst case scenario, I will end up, working at McDonald's or something. But, let's see what happens. And I actually came across the guy who at the time was in the residential long distance phone business, which again, back in the day was a thing. But he sort of saw that it coming to an end, and he was trying to figure out what he was going to do. And at the time, he had probably 20 employees and 10,000 customers, all in the LD business. And so he decided he was going to go in the answering service business, which I didn't know anything about at the time. But the big thing he had, which was also useful back then, which is he had long distance contracts. So he could basically take all kinds of inbound phone calls from one state to another very inexpensively, which at the time was very expensive to cross state lines with a phone call. It's sort of like every time you call grandma, you're spending a lot of money to make that phone call, right? So basically, you take that and you glue it to Google Ads came out about that time, and you put it together. And what we did is we ended up actually, I brought all the web stuff and all the software stuff, and we basically took what was all these little regional businesses and we brought it together. And over 12 years, we wrote all of our own software. We ended up going from having people in a building taking calls to actually having a fully remote workforce, 500 employees, all in the US, taking inbound calls for about 5,000 small businesses, plumbers, lawyers, doctors, dentists. We ended up starting a big software firm in India to write a lot of the code, hiring all of our own people. We had, I don't know, about 1,000 people there at one point. No calls, all just software and stuff. And we grew that to about a $30 million enterprise. So it became a very big business at one point. And that's actually where I met my current co-founder, Varun. But at some point, I sort of realized I wanted to go off and do my own thing. So I started my first SaaS company, which was a invoicing product. So basically, it was an add-on to QuickBooks and Xero. And what I learned from talking actually to some family friends is that a lot of businesses were sending out invoices, and it'd say like, pay this invoice in 30 days, and then 30 days would come and go, and people wouldn't pay the invoice, and then these businesses would get behind, and then they would end up in this cash crunch and they go bankrupt because they weren't able to pay their bill. So what I did is I automated all the reminders that would go off those invoices, and as silly as that sounds, it was quite impactful. So it would help these businesses essentially make people pay, so they wouldn't have this cash crunch and they wouldn't go bankrupt. So I grew that to about 1,000 small businesses off my kitchen table. And then eventually that got acquired by a Canadian payments firm. And then from there, I really had an opportunity to work very directly with a lot of small businesses, with a lot of agencies. And I really wanted to do something where I could do something a little bigger. So I knew I needed some help. So I went and grabbed Varun and I said, hey, I want you to come in and help me with this new thing. I don't exactly know what it is yet. At the time, he said, oh, I'm really busy. I'm working on some sports app. And so I said, hey, your sports app is going to fail. So give me a call when it does. And sure enough, it did. And then, he joined up with me and the rest is history.
It's phenomenal how, like Steve Jobs always says, is that the dots always connect, kind of interconnect each other. And already like back then you've been doing like with the phone stuff and with the first agency, it's been kind of like sort of like the AI chatbot, but back then it was sort of like sending out a person and there would be the selling on the door. It's kind of like you're still sort of doing like similar stuff, but in a very different
100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we like to tell ourselves things change a lot, but the method by which they happen may change quite significantly. But I think the process itself is actually quite the same as it's always been. It's just a different medium.
And now with GoHighLevel, you've grown it like it's probably close to 100,000 subscribers at the moment. A lot of it are agency owners.
4 million end users. So we're now bigger than HubSpot.
A million end users.
4 million.
4 million end users.
Yep.
That's insane. And like, what's the percentage of agency owners that utilize the platform?
Well, I don't know. I hope all of them, but I mean, a lot. Yeah. But that's the magic of the model. We have 100,000 direct customers, but because agencies have such a unique position in the world of being able to not only reach a lot of businesses, but more importantly, help those businesses actually take these tools and create outcomes. We've been able to help those agencies not only help their customers, but also create business models that they never thought they'd have before, and to really be able to deliver out to the customer end solutions that I think, before then, the only choice they had was to go buy something off the shelf from somebody else and hope that that customer would keep them around after they put their heart and soul into making that solution work. But now they own it, they can charge for it, and a lot of them have radically pivoted their model to a much more profitable, scalable kind of software-based model versus the traditional kind of bespoke services model, which a lot of them were stuck on and really was keeping them from scaling their businesses.
Now, you work with like so many agencies. I'm sure you've got like that secret access to, well, I don't know if you go like the insider's data, but you'll see like how many leads someone's
I do have a lot of data. Yes. I will say I'm not a genius by any means, but I do actually have access to quite a bit of information that the average person does not. Yes.
So without spilling like all the secrets, like could you advise, for instance, if you'd start out an agency, which is a lot of agency owners watch our channels, and we have a lot of agency owner friends that are trying to grow the business. what would you say, how would you start an agency right now, and how would you grow it
Oh,
from
sure.
0 to 1 million, and then
Yeah.
from a
So,
million to 10, and from 10 million to 100 million
wow.
with
Okay.
potentially go high
All right,
level?
let's do this. All right. So the first thing is, and this goes for all kinds of businesses. So the number one thing people should think about is what is the scalability of the thing that I'm doing? And if you look at the traditional old school agency model, it would be like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to provide services. And that's lovely and that's great. And there's nothing wrong with them, except they don't scale. Sorry. That's just how it is. And the reason you know this is because forget us. You look at any business that has scalability and you'll see a lot of consolidation in those businesses. But the reason why there's a million agencies in a million places because they don't scale, so they can't be consolidated. So the first thing, and the reason why there is because invariably what ends up happening is most agency owners, they just end up being like highly underpaid employees with no benefits. Like they're on this hamster wheel of, I'm going to go out and get 5 customers, I'm going to be servicing them. And then one day the dentist or the lawyer or the whoever is going to wake up and decide, you know what? I saw a new Mercedes down at the lot. And if I cut this guy, I can afford the lease payment. So I'm going to cut this guy because I don't really know what he does. He says it's SEO. He says I can rank higher. He says do these reports, but I don't know, whatever. He's expensive as hell, though. You got to go, buddy. And boom, out you go. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, wait, hold on. But it's too late. They've already made the decision. The Mercedes has been bought and you're out. So now you got to you're like, oh crap, I got to go back to that whole lead thing. And bam, you're on the hamster wheel again. It's just off and on forever. And wherever you land, some guys it's 5, some guys it's 10, some guys it's 30, but at some point it stops. And the reason why is underpinning all of that is a couple of problem sort of dynamics that don't work for most small businesses. First and foremost, I don't care what you do, you look expensive. And that's all that matters. You look expensive, therefore you are expensive to your customer, and that puts a big target on your back. So that's a problem. You need to lower, how do I lower my cost? And then once you think about that, when you're thinking about how much time and effort you put in, you realize you can't lower your costs because the way you go to the market is you are a custom, you're a custom builder. And that, I don't care what industry you're in. You build custom, if someone says I build custom cars for a living, you got to think that's expensive. I build custom homes for a living, got to think that's expensive. And it is. And so the vast majority of people don't want to pay for custom, but the reason it's happened in marketing is because that's always the offer that exists. So we need to change our product. And so the way to do these two things is fairly simple. You need to go out and become, we call them SaaSpreneurs. You need to sell the same outcomes that you're selling because those outcomes don't change. So the number one thing to remember is you're still selling outcomes. People still want more leads and to be higher ranked on Google and have more customers and all of that. That's still the outcome you're selling, but the way by which you sell it has to change. You need to use software to drive those results. And you have to and when you do this, there's a magic unlock, which is you're able to sell it at a price that you are no longer expensive. So instead of $3,000 a month plus ad spend, which makes you ridiculously expensive, it's $300 a month. Wow, that sounds like a utility bill. Okay, I pay the power company more than that on occasion or whatever. So now you're less of a target. And so now, but when you look at the way the work is being done, you don't have to do it. You don't have to sit there every day and do it all from custom and from scratch. So it's much more scalable. So that's the product we're going to sell. Now, who we're going to sell it to get to 1 million? Oh, it's super simple. Walk out your front door. This whole niche thing, no offense, I think it's nonsense. The best niche is local. And the reason why is because when I'm new, I don't know anything. I know where I live. I might know business owners in my local community. That's the strength. I'm not a genius at dentistry or construction or anything else. And by the way, if you're trying to actually make a sales, I don't care what you're selling. It's about know, like, and trust. People in your community are going to know, like, and trust you a lot more than somebody across the country who you're never going to meet, who's never going to see you, and who you can't connect with in the same way. So if you're talking about getting to 1 million, it's simple. Walk out your front door, sell a digitally driven, outcome-based sale, and you can scale that easily to 1 million in any community you want. So there's your $1 million. Stop. There's your $1 million agency. What's next?
What are your thoughts on, I mean, Ogilvy Matter and later transitioning into Ogilvy, they're like a 4 billion a year company. Accenture Digital, on the other hand, they came up pretty recently as well, and they're a multi-billion-dollar agency as well. What are your thoughts on those type of kind of Goliaths? Like, what sort of packages would they sell? Like, what?
Oh, I have no idea, but I mean, that's a terrible comparison. I mean, look at their customer base. Are we talking about selling to Ford Motors? Because most people aren't going to start an agency and go after Fortune 500 companies, right? So, I mean, I hate those I wouldn't read about those people at all. I mean, if you're interested in them, and that's lovely, and that sounds like a hobby to me, but if you really actually want to start a real agency, you're not going to be serving Ford Motor Company or General Electric or something. You're going to be serving businesses in your community. So those people are irrelevant. I mean, if you go talk to those companies for real, you went through all the work, the customers they take on, they won't take on a customer like under $1 million a year in billings. They can't. Their models are too clunky in order to afford that. So I have no idea, but I wouldn't recommend you think about those people at all.
Yeah. No, that's a very good one. Just keep it practical.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about you. I actually want to start a business and make money. I don't want to, I'm not doing this for fun. So, yeah. So once you make $1 million, one thing you have to sort of figure out is, okay, how big is your local market? Most people undervalue their local market, but I would say most local markets are big enough to get to 10 million. And the way you start to do that is you need to take your existing market and you need to help it make it grow itself. So a couple of ways to do this locally is you need to create a presence. So one, start creating content that's local. And what I mean by that is, like, example would be like, hey, I'm going to start I live in Eugene, Oregon. Hey, I'm going to start the Eugene, Oregon business YouTube channel where I'm going to go around and I'm going to go to local business owners. I'm going to interview them about how great they are and how wonderful the business is. Because here's the great thing. We used to do this all the time. When we wanted to get a new person for HighLevel, we would just send them an email. Hey, person, you're so amazing. You're so awesome. We would love it if you would be willing to come on our podcast and share how amazing you are. And, just like this podcast, who doesn't want to get on and talk about how amazing they are? So sure enough, people would show up. Well, guess what? You do that locally and you talk to your target audience and you interview your target customer. And wouldn't you know it, while they're in the midst of telling you how great they are, you're getting great content. And also you can make a sale. And so all of a sudden you can grow a local market from 1 million to 10 million quite easily. Now, at some point, let's just say you really do tap out that local market. First of all, congratulations, you've got a really killer business. And if you just want to stop right there and be really rich and do great and not have to hire hundreds of employees, you can do that. But if you really say, no, I'm 100 million or bust, that's my life, well, then the next thing you need to do is continue to take that idea of how do I find a one-to-many model, just like I've done here locally. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is go find other people. And a good example is like a Facebook group. Go find a Facebook group full of your target customers. Go to the owner of that Facebook group and make him a deal. Say, listen, I want you to help me sell my software. And I'll tell you what, it's great. I have all these people. It's fantastic. It's a good product. I can prove it to you. But once you buy off on it, and I'll tell you what, every person in your group who buys my software, I'm going to pay you a 40% recurring commission for life on any customer that comes in. And all of a sudden, you're going to find that if you have a great product and you're actually able to deliver, that person will be thrilled. Because what do they have? They have a Facebook group, which is great. It's taken them a lot of time and effort to put that group together and to cultivate it and to run it. But guess what? It doesn't pay them any money. It's not how they make money off the deal. Well, guess what? You're how they can make the money. And it's not a one-time sale. It's a recurring sale for them. So all of a sudden, they have a very vested interest in promoting you, not only just in the moment, but also continuing to promote you forever. And because software, the thing you're selling, has an incredibly high margin, that's another thing to talk about, versus services, there's incredibly high margin here. You're talking 90% profit margins on software versus services. I mean, people will say crazy things like 20% or whatever, but I think most of them realities, they just don't do the real math. It's more like 5% or 10%. There's just not a lot of money there to be sharing with other people. So when you get to software, it's a radically different story. And all of a sudden you start creating these relationships and you're able to multiply that out. And once you crack the nut with one Facebook group, let me tell you, whether it's a YouTube channel or another type of community space, you'll find lots of people who have big audiences who you can create these same deals with. And that's how you're going to start to push yourself out to that 100 million. But because you're starting from that strong base where you already know how to serve the customer, you're already making revenue, you're already selling the products, you're not going to worry about all of that because you've got that handled. Now you can focus on that next stage of projecting it out at a distance and projecting it out to the world. So that's how you're going to get to your 100 million.
It's a good
Wow. This is a powerful answer. Yeah, the affiliates are sort of like letting other people sell your product is one way to create leverage, and yeah, like it's win-win.
I am shocked how many people do not do this. It is very simple. If we all ask ourselves the question, how many products have we bought because someone else recommended them? The answer is lots. And the reality is that is how many things get sold. An affiliate program essentially just accelerates that momentum. And it is the absolute best way to make a sale, because you have no idea all of the rooms and places and people that your customers will meet and be with. And if you are in the back of their mind because they know that they like your product, and by the way, they use it. So it's not a false hollow pitch. It's not like a, it's not like a banner ad or a television commercial saying, it's, hey, you know what? Hey buddy, at this conference or convention, I love this product. It's amazing. I use it every day. In fact, hold on, let me pull my laptop here. Let me just show you how great it is. And that person was like, wow, that is great. That's amazing. Oh yeah, you know what? I can even help you get started. Here, click that. I'll shoot you a link. You can sign up, and if you have any questions, let me know. And boom, they just made a sale for you. It's amazing. I can't believe people don't do this. It's nuts.
Yeah. I guess my question on that one is it sort of makes sense. I get what you're saying about like general service-based businesses or even products as well. But like, what are your thoughts on that specifically in the agency space? I feel like people are a little bit reluctant to recommend agencies. Like a typical one could be like, hey, a web design agency recommends like an SEO agency and takes like a clip if you like. But I feel like I'm not sure. Like,
I mean, what I'm thinking about a world that doesn't work the way things used to work, right? A web, it's so heavy. Oh, you need a web design agency, and then you need an SEO agency, and then this and then that. The reality is that game's over for most people. I think that I think that the reality is most small business owners and all the way up to medium business owners, they don't want to deal with that. They don't care about all of that. I mean, no offense, but that's just not like, they want a one-stop shop. They want somebody who can deliver results. They don't want to have to get into the nitty-gritty of web design and SEO and PPC and glue it all together and manage a bunch of vendors. Forget all that. I just want one dude who does my marketing and he delivers the results. And that's actually what he sells me, thank goodness, because that's all I care about. I don't actually want a website. I don't care about websites, by the way. I don't care about SEO. I give a crap about that. Here's the reality. I want customers and I want money. So unless you develop it, if you can't give me customers and money, not interested in your services, thanks. And that's the way that we're starting to see people go to market. Because that's what customers want, and how that gets done is mostly irrelevant to the end user. And if you look at the traditional way it was done, sure, web design agencies existed because web design was important. But I will tell you, in the age of AI and really nice templates, for most people, they don't need a web design agency. They don't need a bespoke, beautiful, custom, amazing website to change their world. They're a plumber, they're a lawyer, they're a doctor, a dentist. They can have the same web design or the website as 1,000 other lawyers, because no one cares. No one's going to see that website and compare it to all those people. And there's no uniqueness there. That's the point. It's no longer a requirement to have that sort of level of, again, custom. It's like, I don't need a custom car. You don't drive a custom car. I don't drive a custom car. Almost no one drives a custom car. You know why? Don't need it. We still like our cars though. It's just we happen to drive the same cars a zillion other people. And the reason why is because that's what makes cars scalable. That's why there's a business there. If every car was custom, there'd be a lot less cars. And that's the point. If you want to make something accessible and scalable, you have to make it repeatable. And ultimately, web design in general, it's the custom. I'm going to go out and build. And trust me, I've bought many custom websites. I've spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars in my life buying custom websites. And in fact, the funny part is even HighLevel had a beautiful $30,000 custom website that generated exactly 0 customers until we went to a one-page landing page, which we still have today. And to be fair, it is slightly evolved. Although if I showed you the original in 2 seconds flat, you'd be like, it's not really that different. And the reality is it's not. But yet we have grown from a company of 0 customers to 4 million customers in 7 years off that one-page website. So the point is that while maybe that's not what everybody can do, I still think most people don't need a custom bespoke website. And even something like SEO, where traditionally it was a very manual process of link building and so forth and so on. I think even there's a lot of automation that has come along that has made that less of a bespoke business. And to be fair, is it true that a custom SEO package or a custom website is superior to the automated version? Absolutely. But here's the truth. Most people don't need it. They need an ROI positive engagement. And if I can pay $300 a month and get ROI out of that versus $3,000 a month, and I'm not sure if I get ROI out of that, I'm going $300 every time.
Yeah. That sort of, I guess, leads into, I feel like maybe you've sort of answered the next question that I had, but I felt like when my first gig at an agency, like I don't maybe you guys existed, but I didn't hear about high level being around. We always heard about like, HubSpot or Salesforce or Infusionsoft or something like that.
Yep.
Like, how did you sort of, because you in a few other podcasts you spoke about validation, so how did you also, I mean, obviously you just spoke about ROI, making sure
Yeah.
that people are getting value.
Mhm.
I felt like, yeah, like you guys have just sort of, from what it feels like, I'm not saying that it was like that, you just come out of nowhere and then you guys are now like the biggest. Yeah, and it feels like that a little bit. I'm not saying that it happened like that at all.
Well, I mean, so a couple of things. So first and foremost, we don't sell to everyone and their brother.
Yeah.
HubSpot and Salesforce and all those guys, they'll sell to everybody. And
Yeah.
all the agencies we met with, that's actually how we came to be. I would talk to lots of agencies and they'd be like, well, I just lost one of my best clients because, I spent the last 6 months making their HubSpot work perfectly and hooking it all up and getting it all working with their marketing campaigns. And they all of a sudden one day they fired me. And I'm like, why did that happen? And they said, well, because they think the software does all the work. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. And they said, I know, but it doesn't matter because that's not how they feel. And I saw that and I heard that hundreds of times. And I realized that there is a miscongruence there where agencies were just getting a shaft left and right because they weren't able to take credit for their work. And so that's how the white label came around. That's why we originally white label, because I said, well, that's ridiculous. Let's make it so that it's impossible for the end customer to see a difference between the software and the agency. So, and ironically, and this is, I mean, and to be very transparent, everything we've ever done well, we've gotten from our customers. There's not a single idea that I've ever come up with on my own. It's all from our customers. And that's actually how we came out of nowhere. We've just been following our customer for years. And our customer, originally when we did the white label, because of that issue, that situation, they're the ones who started creating SaaS mode, which is they were then packaging. Agencies were finding that, yeah, they were still getting fired on the services side, but people were still paying for the software. So they started packaging it up and reselling it and becoming de facto software companies. And that's actually how we got to SaaS mode to begin with. But, we got here because we said, look, we're not going to sell to plumbers and lawyers and doctors and dentists because that's just a false narrative. The very idea that you would tell a small business owner like that, oh yeah, you can do this all on your own, right? This is just DIY. That's no different than saying, you want to remodel your house? Well, heck, just head on down to the hardware store, buy every tool they got, come home, and bam, you're going to add a second story like this afternoon. I'm giving you a break. It's ridiculous, right? But that's exactly what those other companies push as a narrative. And we found that we knew that was a false narrative. And we said, forget it. We're not going to be those guys. So we're just going to sell to, but what we did know is we knew agencies, when given the right tools, could create magic, just amazing, awesome results. So we're like, look, we're just going to work with these guys. And sure enough, what are we going to do? What are we going to build? Our bright idea was, we'll just ask the agencies because they've spent years dealing with these other tools. They'll know exactly what it is that they need. And we'll sit there, be quiet, listen, and build what they tell us to build. And that's exactly what we've done for 7 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I feel like, yeah, a big point. You often talk about speaking to your customer, right? Find out exactly what the problems are. So that's definitely and that's definitely amazing. And I guess, how did that progress? Like, obviously you would have had a V1, and what's been like, how's it happening? And
this is a great journey. So like you mentioned ClickFunnels, that's how we started. We started as an ad, basically. So we were all those Facebook ad cowboys who are just running ads for doctors and dentists and all that, and free teeth whitening and all. Those are our core starting customer. And their problem in life is they would go to Facebook, they would run some killer ad, they'd get all these leads on a spreadsheet, and they'd pay a penny a lead, and they'd be breaking out the champagne because they thought they did such a great job, and they'd hand the spreadsheet over to the customer with hundreds of names, and then the customer would fire them. Yeah. And they'd be like, what just happened? And the reality is there's a big disconnect, which is the people on the spreadsheet weren't walking in for the free teeth whitening, right? So the dentist was like, what's this? This is just a bunch of names. I need customers, buddy. Like, what's going on? and they're like, oh, you didn't call these people. You didn't nurture them. You didn't the marketing, the dentist like, what are you talking about, man? I know how to drill teeth. I don't even know what's nurturing. I'm not calling these people. I don't have time, right? And then you need to do that. And the marketing needs to be like, hey, whoa, I don't do that. So now what, right? So what we realized is we needed to become an intermediary. So that's exactly what we did. So we took the idea of lead nurturing and we automated it. So, when someone registers on that Facebook ad, we know they have an interest in it. We reach out to them, and initially it was just SMS, and that's evolved over time, of course. But it was, hey, thanks for registering for Dr. Bob's free teeth whitening. Is now a good time to get you booked? And the person, of course, was like, yeah, because I just filled out the ad, so I'm clearly interested. And all of a sudden, we could conversate that booking all the way down to someone walking in the office. And then that was something that dentists could really sink their teeth into. No pun intended. But ultimately, that is what got them excited, right? Because now a person walking in for an appointment was a tangible version of something they knew how to handle as a business, and took the idea of that lead and turned them into money. And so that radically changed the business for those folks overnight, and their ROI went way up. Their churn rates went way down. It just revolutionized their business. And so that was sort of V1 for us. Really V1 was we were SMS and we were two-way text messaging and reputation management, and we were trying to sell to small businesses initially. But once we figured out that was the bad way to go and we switched to agencies, that's really where we found our first kind of big hit, was that lead nurture piece. And ironically enough, to this day, lead nurturing is still, in my opinion, the most important thing that businesses do a poor job of. But, that was kind of where we started. And then we kind of grew vertically or horizontally or whatever direction that is from there, and added on additional features to try to continue to kind of go up the value stack and capture more and more of the tool set that the agencies were already deploying.
Yeah, because I think because the interesting thing for me is I was the way I actually found out about HighLevel was I was in the flexible course with Dan Waltrope.
Oh yeah,
and
cool.
It basically started that this all started from essentially like you get a lead and it's just it triggers a reply like text me back yes, and I feel like he's a very big like sort of advocate for you guys. But then he basically went from the next point. So it wasn't just text me back yes and get a reply. It was, now you can actually have like say ChatGPT integrated with Zapier and actually have a conversation. And now what he's actually talking about is full database. I don't know what he calls it, but like reviving a database. So my question,
the term I know is database reactivation.
That's the one, yeah. So my sort of question, like for you, is this all happened over the past, I would say, like 2-3 years or even less. Yeah. Where is this going now? Like I know there's a lot of talk about what are they called, AI agents and
agentic AI. Yep, AI agents. That's absolutely the future. So it's very clear to us. So we're doing this both on the customer side and also very much behind the scenes. So it's very clear to us that in the future, the labels will evolve, but an agency. So I sort of think about if again, it's funny. We started this. There was the comment earlier about how it's amazing how in my career the sort of outcomes have stayed the same, but the methodologies have changed, right? Well, this is another step change, in my opinion. So we are going to still get to the same outcomes as we were getting to before, but now we're going to be using AI agents to do it. But an AI agent is not, I think of them, we started calling them AI employees. I think AI agents is going to win the day because invariably that's kind of where the market's going, but they are really employees in the sense that I think you are going to talk to in some fashion, probably like this actually at some point, your AI agent, and you're going to continue to train them and make them better. They will be kind of like people in the sense that we're imperfect, we're always learning, we can do better, etc. But I think that agencies will at some level deploy these agents on behalf of their customers and be responsible to continue to make those agents better and evolve them. And the value proposition to those small businesses will be that just like today, you're coming in and offering a turnkey sort of service that still accomplishes the same goal, but through a different methodology. And I think AI agents are going to serve a big purpose there. And I think, for me, what's tough about AI originally is that it was very intangible. Like you could do the ChatGPT demos and it could be like, wow, that's cool. But then when you're like, what the heck? Like, how do I sell this? What do I sell? A really tangible example that we have now at scale at high level is all the way back to where I started, which is inbound voice AI. So, if I ask you the simple question, have you ever called a business to buy something or to get something and had them not pick up the phone? Well, of course, right? All the time. Well, great. So back in the day, the way the answering service worked was you would call the plumber because your toilet's having a problem, and the plumber would be out at another job, and we would ring the plumber 3 times, and then the call would roll over, and a live human being would pick up and say, "Hi, thanks for calling Bob's Plumbing. How can I help you?" And you're like, "Oh, help, my toilet's exploding," whatever. And they'd be like, "Oh, no problem. We'll get your information. We'll get somebody right out there," right? That right there, that simple construct means something incredible for that business, which is you do not feel like you're not being served. Therefore, you do not call the next competitor down the list, right? Imagine that we can now take that whole transaction and take the human out of it on the rollover side and put AI in there. And that is exactly what we are doing. And AI is now at a level of performance where they can replace that functionality. And that same magic outcome, which is that business just got a new customer that they would otherwise lost, still remains. And so that is a great example of an AI agent, essentially, who is now in the role of the inbound, call center answering service agent, a human being. That role is now being replaced quite successfully in the receptionist domain. And that is a good example of the type of thing that you will now see en masse as we move forward. Those types of agent roles will expand considerably.
How can employees like diversify themselves, protect themselves from kind of like all these shifts in the market? I feel like diversification is the answer. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think that business owners will still expect or want outcomes, and however those outcomes are served to them, they won't care so long as the quality is good and the price is right. And I think that what this does is, I think that most people will end up becoming, because you're domain experts, that domain expertise, it continues to be valuable. I think the difference is before, it's like if you knew how to dig a really good ditch, you're the person out there with the shovel digging the ditch. Now your job is to teach the AI agent how to dig the ditch because you know how to do it really well. And you're going to continue to evolve. Now, ditch digging is probably a little bit of a simplistic example, but if you take anything with kind of an evolving skill set, and most things of worth are complex, and most things that are complex are evolutionary. Web design today is a lot different than web design before, and SEO and everything else. So, again, the AI agent will be out there sort of doing the actual heavy lifting, but you will be the one always evolving those agents by continuing to give them the same strategy that before you were first of all learning yourself. And if you think about it, if you had a force of people, you were having to train these people on these sorts of changes. I think you're now going to be training AI agents instead because they'll be actually doing the work.
I guess the only thing is then if in a world where everybody has AI agents, are you at an advantage by having the AI agent, or are you then having...
Well, there'll be a first mover advantage. There'll be a period where there's a lot of first mover advantage for sure. But no, eventually, I mean, it's like all good arms races, right? Eventually, everyone's at some point it'll become sort of, stock and trade. And if you don't have it, you'll just get annihilated, right? It'll be weird. It'll be like, oh, I don't have a car. I use a horse, and you're like, okay, that's
actually, I'm looking at it the other way. If everybody has AI agents and then you're the only person who is a real person, then you actually automatically stand out.
Oh, you just get crushed. Sorry.
I'm not sure about that.
I mean, you'll stand out for sure. You'll just stand out really bad. I mean, I think fundamentally, we are all, in our own personal lives, interested often at times of just getting something done. And, we're disinterested in doing it and no one says, I really want to do this in a slow, expensive, old school way. It's just not, unless it's a hobby or something, and that's a totally different domain. But in the domain of business, it's fundamentally about getting the most efficient outcome, from speed and price. And the second you do that, you win. And I think AI has the capacity to do that. And I think that should be seen as a lovely thing. I mean, it's sort of like, I remember watching a documentary and they brought some guy over, I think from Finland or something. and he saw that in the US we have toll booths just as they do in Finland, but the big difference is in Finland they don't have a lot of people. So the toll booths in Finland are fully automated. So you drive, you drive your car through, it like uses a camera, it charges you a rate. I don't know, however that works. But in the US, we have human beings sitting in these booths actually doing the work, sitting there huffing in all the fumes from all the cars. And he was just aghast at the fact that we would do something so backwards when, he sees us as this big, powerful, rich country or whatever, and his little nation, but that's the point. It'll be things like that, where it'll be like, okay, I mean, what are you doing? That's nuts. And I think AI is going to be very much the same way.
Yeah.
How are you, Shaun? Like, what really impressed me, like, we had a few conversations on Meta through the Messenger. Like, you're very humble and down to earth. Like, I met many entrepreneurs, and some people are like, they're doing a little bit of revenue, and it's like they have got crazy ego, but you're just like you're just very relaxed, and we ask you to do podcasts, and you're like, yeah, like that's amazing. So how does that
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm just like anybody else. I mean, I feel lucky to be here. So, I mean, I guess when you feel lucky to be here, you have a hard time feeling like you know what it is. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time in life convincing themselves that somehow they're special and they did it all, and it was all about them. I think there's a lot of luck in life, and I can think of a lot of people who were it not for them, I would not be here. And so I just have a hard time forgetting that fact. And so it just keeps me from waking up thinking I'm some, omnipotent genius or something, because I just know I'm not. So, it's just hard for me to develop some kind of, complex there. And, again, the number one person I wouldn't be here without is our customers. So, and I learn from them every single day. I mean, I really do. And even when even when people stick it to you, say bad things, and what I always try to do is like kind of look beyond that and look for the creative feedback and what we can do better. And it's amazing how people go out of their way to criticize you. The nice thing is if they're actually at least taking time to criticize you, they can go criticize someone else. And if you look behind that criticism, it's often that there's something that they're feel like they wish you would do better. And it's amazing how we get a lot of good feedback that way, even when it's difficult. And so for me, I just feel like I want to stick to that, and it's gotten us where we are, and I think it will get us where we're going. And so I don't see any other way to be. I guess that's just how I come.
Now, we really appreciate you, and I think so many other entrepreneurs is personally kind of like how I kind of want to carry myself as well. If someone in the future reaches out, they need help, like just offer them help a person out.
Oh, we've all been there,
really
right? So like I couldn't imagine. Like we've all been at the lowest, we've all been at our highest and everywhere in between. So, I think it's always good to recognize. And, I think it's cool because I know just in my experience, the people I talk to, I get a chance to talk to some really smart people, and, they may be wherever they are today, but I'll tell you, many of them will be at a much, much bigger place down the road. And I'm just ecstatic to say someday, like, oh, I met that person kind of on their journey. So and if I could be part of it and I could help in any way and help them along that path, I feel fortunate.
Thank you so much, Shaun. We really want to be respectful of your time as well. We really appreciate you joining us today. Yeah, we're excited to share this with the world and share your inspiring journey. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.